Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 40 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as always, by National Conference Speaker and Lead Cloud Engineer, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
Tired of train journeys.
Yeah, we need to make that international, but at the moment it's still national. You did go to the extremities of England
Yes.
for your most recent conference talk last week.
Yes. So I was up in Newcastle for the unaware, and from the south of England to the north of England, that's 400 miles, something like that, a bit further maybe. And it took me about 5 hours each way, which was not so fun. For our American listeners out there, that seems like, well, that's just, half of Texas. But it's a long way for someone in this country, and trains aren't great.
For us, it feels like the panhandle of Florida to Alaska, even though it's nowhere near as far, but it is one end of our country to the other. So,
yeah. Oh, it's still even reasonably far for Australian distances as well. I mean, not from someone in WA, but yeah, a bit. 5 hours is decent.
Australian distances are also rather large. But on that note, let me introduce our guest for today, fellow AWS community builder, user group leader, and AWS ambassador, Jason Wood. How are you doing today, Jason?
Yeah, I'm good. It's late here, but so the recent outage has hit after our business hours, which was probably good for my customers.
Well, we woke up to the AWS outage this morning, so I think it was kind of 8 a.m. our time that the news broke.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And I heard it first from my business coach, bizarrely, who texted me to say, "Have you seen this?" It's like, no, I'm having my breakfast. I have now. So I thought I'd better check all of the channels, and thankfully, nothing had kind of exploded from Logicata's perspective. But of course, all of the communications channels this morning and the press been filled with the latest outage of US East 1 AWS. We don't exactly know what it was yet, but I think your speech bubble there, Jason, is alluding to it. Like the infamous Haiku, we think it was DNS.
Yep. I mean, that's what the status said. DNS for DynamoDB. So...
which has caused degradation, which appears in red on the AWS status page for DynamoDB. But what was the other thing? I forget the other status, which appears in blue, but that was for 67 impacted. There we go.
Yes.
Impacted 60 services the last time I looked, but every time I looked, that
now.
number is... Oh, is it? I was going to say that every time I look, that number is increasing. So
refreshing.
But it's been declassified from degraded back down to impacted now. So DynamoDB is no longer degraded, but there's now 72 impacted services, and the specifics appear to be DNS resolution of DynamoDB endpoint, and then some other endpoints as well, because I assume they sit in the same bit of kit somewhere. Which, because US East 1 is the global but not really home for quite a lot of things, it's just had big impacts.
Yeah.
So if you're into Minecraft or Roblox, you will have been disappointed for a good 3 hours.
Canva.
Yeah, Slack was working for us, but we couldn't upload as many memes as we wanted to about the issue. Uploading memes was a slow process this morning.
The AWS are getting name recognition now.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But it does seem to be all over. Hopefully, things are slowly returning back to normal. So I think about a 3-hour period that things were kind of a little bit unstable for. It's the first one. I was asking John when was the last one of these he could remember.
It's been a while.
Whilst they are, pretty impactful, that thankfully they are very rare. Good few years, I think, since the last outage of this magnitude.
Definitely.
Still, big hugs to everyone in the engineering team over there. Full on hug ops going on. They all need pizzas and coffees and beers and all the rest of it, because I was a little bit, how can I word this? Firm with someone, I think, complaining about it. It's like, well, this doesn't happen very often. And it's a lot better than it used to be, because this one used to be really flaky, and it's a
Yeah.
lot better now. Stuff breaks.
Definitely.
Yeah, you just have to accept it.
Yeah, yeah. Things happen, and as you said, it's been a long time. So,
yeah, hugs, pizza, and beer for everyone, apart from the guy who deployed the dodgy code that caused it, which is probably what usually where these things begin. But, I don't know what he gets. What would you get for him?
More pizza and more beer and more hugs, because people break stuff all the time. The number of times I've broken a production infrastructure for investment banks, people break things all the time. Chill.
Been there, done that. It's not fun.
Those are the famous words of Amazon CTO Werner Vogels, are they not? Things break all the time.
Everything breaks all the time.
Everything breaks all the time. That's the one. Yeah.
Yes, but then the follow-up, it's much like most sayings. That's not the whole quote. Everything breaks all the time.
Yeah.
So plan
for failure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure AWS have and do. And as I said, these things are generally resolved very quickly. It's just the impact is far-reaching and therefore very noticeable in our day-to-day lives. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this on a future episode, as the press articles will continue to emerge throughout this week. But felt we ought to mention it as it's happened just today before we've come to the recording studio.
Normally we're a week behind due to the news cycle, but we're very on the topic.
Right, very on the ball.
We had to talk about this one today, but of course we have got some news from last week to talk about as well, which is regular listeners to the podcast will know that is the format for this podcast. Once a week I curate a list of AWS news which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. Then John picks a selection of those articles that we share with our guest. So of course we do have such a selection, but I've just realized we've skipped straight ahead because we got so excited to talk about the outage that we haven't even had Jason introduce himself. So before we go into last week's news articles, Jason, just tell us. I did mention I introduced you as community builder, ambassador, and user group leader, perhaps in a different order. But tell us a bit about what you do for the AWS community and what you do for a living.
Yeah, so as you say, I'm a community builder. I'm on year 3, and I've only been a user group leader for a couple of years, but I've been volunteering and attending for a very long time the AWS or Melbourne AWS user group. So we just had this week, number 153.
That is a lot of user groups. How frequently do you run your user groups?
Monthly.
Wow.
So that is a long time.
It's over 10 years.
Yeah, over 10 years. So that's been good. And we also we meet on the last Wednesday of every month. So anyone from Melbourne that's listening to this, come have a look. I'm also an AWS ambassador. So I work for a partner, and that's Versant. I'm in managed services. So look after a few big customers and keep them happy.
Cool. Thanks for that, Jason. And we have got some managed services related news articles to talk about, but not the first one. Well, I guess it kind of is, but some of them are perhaps more relevant. But this first article that we've got to talk about this week is an article from the AWS security blog about simplified model access in Amazon Bedrock. So we're kicking off with AI from the get-go. But John, tell us what caught your eye about this article on simplified model access in Amazon Bedrock.
Because this change meant I had to change my slides for my talk last week. That was it. That was literally it. This came along. I knew they were doing it before this came out because they did it on the 8th, and I saw that, and I had to get my slides in like the week before. So last minute, change that, just one extra line. So for the uninitiated, previously, up until week before last, if you wanted to use a model in Bedrock that wasn't an Amazon model, because the Titan ones and things have been pre-approved, you had to go into effectively a catalog and request access to them. Didn't cost you anything. You could just request it. Some of them were approved automatically. Some of them took a few minutes. I assume they were still approved automatically, but it wasn't approved automatically within AWS. Like, I think it went out to like Claude or whatever, and then come back again to say that, yes, you can have that. But you had to go and turn it on manually. And that was, I don't know of any other service that you've had to do that with. You have to turn on non-standard regions sometimes. So if you want to run traffic in AF South 1 in South Africa, you have to turn that region on. Fine, okay. But you've never had to do that with any service, at least as far as I'm aware. And this is the first one you did. And that caught a lot of people out, I think, because you go and try and use the model and go, this isn't enabled for you. Sorry, go do that. And then, okay, you go do it, and 5 minutes later, it's fine. But you couldn't, therefore, fully codify your deployment of your AI workflows. You had to go in and manually turn things on in each account. And that's annoying as hell. I had a specific takeaway in my talk that I just delivered, but it was more relevant at the start of the year because it was still a thing, that said, go do that first. I had a specific thing saying, go do that first. And then I had to put a line in saying, maybe you don't have to anymore. It depends on how old your account is and if it's been hoovered up yet. But yeah, so you don't have to go and turn them on anymore. And it was always a weird thing as well, because SCPs and IAM still applied to Bedrock. So the same way every other service works now still is how Bedrock works, right? You maintain control through IAM and SCP, which is what everything else is using. So I don't know why it previously existed like this. There must have been some sort of engineering reason for it, or rate limits, or some sort of just slowing people down from going, give me all the shiny. But it just kind of rationalized it with every other service now. So
yeah,
big tick.
The interesting thing that I did read, though, is for the Anthropic models, you still need to go and fill out a first-time usage form before you can access them. So seems like they're enabled, but you can't use them until you fill out that form. But apparently that can be done at the org level. So if you've got an org structure, go in, fill it out, send it out to everything else, all your other accounts, and then you're okay. But
I can do that. There's a lot of services that work like that within the org level. I'm setting up an organization. You can't fully codify that. You've got to do various bits of it manually. You've got to do control tower to start with by hand and so on. So I can live with that.
And if you haven't got an org structure, you should have. If you wish to align with AWS best practices. So, but I'm glad you clarified the specific takeaway in your talk, John, because I wasn't sure if it was the gyros or the pizza, but it was neither of those. I assume you didn't have those during your talk.
Is it a takeaway if you eat it stood next to the food truck?
Well, you haven't taken it very far, but
it's quite hard to eat in a food truck. I think
sort of like your Japanese version of takeaway. You can't walk with it. You have to eat it there.
But so that form, Jason, that you have to fill in either at the account or the org level, what are they asking for there then? What, in order to get access to those models?
Don't know. I think I did it ages ago when I was first playing, but it's like when you used to have to go and turn the models on for your Anthropic ones, there was an extra like stuff that you need to fill out, give them some extra details or whatnot.
I think it's can't remember customer stuff and that kind of thing, because lots of models, Anthropic being one of them, they bill via the marketplace rather than through your main bill. So it still shows up on your normal bill, but if you've got credits and what have you, you can't use them for model access because it bills through the marketplace instead. So I assume it's that kind of stuff. Just, yes, I consent to paying, slightly differently.
Yeah, probably something like, it's been a little while since I turned that one on, but I just having a note that that was specifically called out in the article.
Cool. Well, it's now easier, therefore, to access all of the non-AWS models in Bedrock. But sticking with the theme of Anthropic models, our next article is the announcement that Claude 4.5 or 4.5, depending on how you wish to express the decimal point, but Claude 4.5 Haiku by Anthropic is now in Amazon Bedrock. So, John, again, I'll come to you first on this one. What are your thoughts on the latest Claude Haiku 4.5?
That I'm still whinging about the naming convention. Jeez, like crying out loud. It was bad in the 3s, right? So you had Claude 2, that was just Claude 2. Fine, that made sense. Then you had Claude 3, and you had what was it? It's Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus.
Sonnet,
I think that's the order.
Opus. Yeah.
And that was okay. And then they had their own subversion. So Haiku didn't get lots of subversions, but Sonnet got like 4 different subversions, and then it had 3.5 version 1 and 2 and 3.7, and then everything seemed to calm down when it got to version 4, because all 3 of them again had a version 4, I think. And now we're in 4.5, and Haiku and Sonnet have a 4.5, but I don't think Opus does, or maybe it does. I honestly have lost track at this point. I get that they don't want to give it a full version because it's incremental improvements, and what they tend to talk about with this is Haiku being the low model, like the baby model, the entry-level model. 4.5 is performance matching, more or less, for Sonnet, right? So the tier up, but the version older, it's about the same. And that's important because the per token cost of Haiku will be cheaper, because they're cheap, and that's kind of how they work, right? Haiku is the cheap one, Sonnet is the medium one, and Opus is the expensive one, and that also goes in terms of their capabilities. I still refuse to use the term intelligence when it comes to these things, because I just refuse. But in terms of their capabilities, that's kind of, you pay more, you get more. Cool. So the fact that you can have the baby model that's as capable as the mid-range model, but cheaper token costs and potentially fewer tokens, then that's good. That's always good. New models is good. We like new models.
Cheaper is good.
Just it's all good generally. I wonder if it makes better haikus than sonnets, though.
We can
find out.
Yeah.
This is where it spits out a limerick or something instead.
Oh,
that'll be their next. Their next sort of intermediates, like this is a sort of
I cycled along Nantuck's Lane yesterday, which reminded me of a limerick I know, which I'm not going to recite here because that would get us banned from YouTube. So I'm gonna.
I think I know that one. Yeah,
I'll tell you later when we hit the stop button.
That one.
It's pretty well known, quite memorable. Definitely not safe for work or YouTube or Logicast. But did you have anything to add on the Haiku model, Jason?
No, not too much more other than what John said. Like, if you can get similar performance, even slightly older or against a slightly older version of Sonnet for cheaper, then I mean, if that's the sort of thing that you're doing, why pay more?
Absolutely. Why pay more? Into Jeff's rocket fund, as we like to say.
Exactly. Jeff's rocket fund. And as I like to remind people every time this comes up, if you're still using the 3.5 and 3.7 models, you need to upgrade, because they go end of life at the end of the year and into extended support for the first 3 months of next year, and your price is going to go up dramatically. So you need to upgrade, and that's as much me telling me to do that as anything else, because I still haven't done that.
Cool. Well, on that note, let's move on to our next article for this week, which is an article on the AWS News blog. The title is Monitor, Analyze, and Manage Capacity Usage from a Single Interface with Amazon EC2 Capacity Manager. And ironically, this was one of the articles I was trying to open this morning during the AWS outage, and the URL said EC2 Capacity Manager, and I've got a lovely screenshot with the 500 error just beneath. So I might keep that one for posterity. EC2 Capacity Manager. I'll come to you first on this one, Jason, as this is very much in the cloud ops space, which is your forte. So what are your thoughts on this?
It looks very interesting. It's just sort of looks like it's pulling a whole lot of different resources into one dashboard. So including your cost, reserved instance usage, savings plan usage, capacity, all those sorts of things in a single pane, which that could be, I can see that could be quite handy, especially around time with if you've got, savings plans and things and they're coming up for renewal. It's nice to have everything in one pane. You can see, are you using them all? What's your capacity like? Can you drop things down? Yeah, it looks like it'll be interesting. Just, I suppose, it looks like all the stuff already exists, but in different places. So one of those little quality of life things, just pull it all into one area. Makes things easier.
So it's kind of an amalgamation of compute optimizer, cost optimization hub, savings plans, etc.
Yeah. It just looks like it's sort of pulling all those things into one. So yeah, just making life a little bit easier.
John, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no notes. The only thing to add to this is the one that I spotted that I quite like is if you're using Spot instances, and you should be, if at all possible, there's a specific tab that talks about your instance usage and time that they run before interruption, and then there's recommendations on how you can reduce the interruptions, which is quite important. So
I missed that bit. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so whilst your workloads running on Spot need to be, it's not a nice to have, it's a need. They need to be ephemeral, stateless, able to tolerate interruptions with a couple of minutes notice, so on and so on. Right. Containerized workloads largely, because you can put almost anything in a container, but containerized workloads largely follow this pattern. So you can, just spin the container up somewhere else within a couple of minutes and it's fine. And if you're using something like EKS, then you can just see the poor worker at work, the poor pod scheduler just going and moving things around all the time. But if you're using Spot instances and you want to reduce the amount of time you're having capacity taken back from you, then it gives you tips on how to do that. Because whilst your workload should be able to tolerate it, being less interrupted is usually better.
Yeah.
Because, you just run times and things like that. So that's quite useful as well. But yes, absolutely spot on. It seems to be an amalgamation of lots of the data that already exists just in one pane of glass, which is really quite nice. I still don't know why it's the term pane of glass still, because monitors are plastic now, but okay. And the other thing is I can see this being quite useful for large enterprises, because where you have lots and lots of capacity deployed over lots and lots of accounts and regions, this is going to be quite useful. For our sort of customer base, SMBs and mid-market, where they've got between 1 and 20 servers, it's all in the one region and the one account anyway, so it's less useful. It's nice that it's still there and you've got your usage metrics and your capacity trends and so on, but it's an enterprise feature to a great extent, I think.
If you look at it on your phone or your iPad, you're probably looking at it through Gorilla Glass. So, I guess the term still has some relevance.
Yeah.
Or if you go and stand outside and look at your monitor through the window, then you'll be looking at it through that pane of glass as well. So,
yeah, well, I mean, it's those things that just stick with us, like, all those people that still, hoover their floors, but most people are probably either using a Dyson or a Shark or something else.
Yeah. Other vacuum cleaner brands are available.
Yes, I Miele my floors. That just doesn't sound right, does it? I Roomba the floor. No.
Yeah.
But the spog would become a spop if it was a single pane of plastic. Don't know. Don't know if that clashes with any other acronyms, but anyway. And it's not really a single pane of glass, is it? Because it's got about 5 tabs. So I suppose you're still looking at the same pane, but you've still got to go through the tabs to pass.
Yeah. You don't have to get into a different console
absolutely. Yeah.
But it's still, yeah.
And it's free, which is great. So we like free stuff. So you can use this if it may benefit you. So check out the EC2 Capacity Manager. Let's move along to the next article, which this is from the AWS Cloud Operations blog. This is all about how you can analyze logs usage with Amazon CloudWatch Enhanced Automatic Dashboard. So, Jason, I'm going to come to you again first on this one as well. What are your thoughts on the CloudWatch Enhanced Automatic Dashboard?
Yeah, well, I mean, I saw the title first off, like automatic dashboards. Okay, yeah, that's cool. We've sort of pulled some of those things up before, but then when I read it, I was actually quite excited because I could see some immediate use for one of my customers that, a lot of times you see your dashboards and they're about the things that you're monitoring. This one is about CloudWatch logs. So it gives you all sorts of data on what your CloudWatch logs are doing and pricing and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I had a recent question from one of my customers about like, how much is this going to cost? What's it going to do? How can we watch it? And I was like, oh, this looks very interesting and looks like I can have an immediate use for this one. So I was glad to see that in there. So yeah, it looks, definitely looks interesting if you're wanting to get info about what CloudWatch logs is doing, not what you're monitoring with CloudWatch.
So I guess you've always been able to do this, right? But you would have had to build it yourself. And
yeah, you could you'd have to pull bits and pieces of info from different places and see things. So and this also looks like it will give you a bit more granularity as well if you're looking into specific log groups that you want to get information on. So yeah, a lot of stuff seems to be a bit more general, generic about like what your CloudWatch logs is doing, not a particular log group. So it more granularity, more info.
John,
I'm excited.
Are you excited, John?
Not as excited. Yeah, so it's very much a meta dashboard, which is useful, right? It's incredibly useful. So the data did exist before, but you had to work quite hard to go and get it. You'd be looking at things like CloudTrail and cost and usage reports and and CUR and various other things. And the data was hard to get. It's there, but it's hard to get, and it's not really very real time. What this is doing is, if you look at kind of this couple of screenshots that they've shown, what you get is a really useful, here's how much data we're pulling in, here's ingestion per log group, here's API calls per minute, that kind of thing, right? And the key sections it calls out is ingestion by account and by log group as two separate things. So again, really nice as an organization feature if you've got lots of accounts that have lots of things going on in them. Service usage, embedded metric format, which I don't really understand, but okay, I think that's just how it writes the logs. Subscription filters, cool. Log anomaly detection, cool. Data protection and transformers, cool. So all of this is really good stuff. It's good on a cost optimization perspective because whilst you can't optimize the service as such, so it's not like a compute capacity, compute savings plan where you can just say, I'm going to have this much. You can't do that with logs. You just pay as you use them. But you can say, that log group there has 4 times the log ingest as it had a week ago. Something's iffy with the service that's generating those logs. And you can go and probably find that, a log setting has been set to info rather than warn or error for a production workload. And you can go and change that and fix the bill, because CloudWatch log ingress is 50 cents a gigabyte, I want to say. It's in that kind of ballpark. So it's kind of spendy. It's a lot cheaper than someone like Datadog, where they charge you about $5 per gigabyte or something ridiculous. But it can be quite spendy at scale. I mean, to the extent that I've never once seen a serverless workload that the logs weren't the most expensive component there, which is okay. And maybe that's just on me for logging things too much, perhaps. But yeah, so this is quite useful for that. Anomalies as well. So again, you can see the number of anomalies rather than the specifics. It's we've had X number of them over a period of time, and so on and so on and so on. So it's very useful for cost optimization more than day-to-day work, as it were. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. A lot of that. How much are these things costing me? What is this particular log group? How come it's so expensive, and what is the most expensive bit of these CloudWatch logs?
It's absolutely something that you could use to then drive further optimizations, because it talks about ingestion. I don't know if it talks about storage, but that's one of the key ways of reducing your logs bill is not keeping things in CloudWatch logs forever. So if you want to hang on to your log files for archival purposes, the recommendation is put them into CloudWatch logs for a bit, so that you can kind of query them easily. You can use Athena and what have you if you do it straight to S3, but not everybody likes that, so fine. Stick it in CloudWatch logs and then export it from there via Firehose into S3, and you can sort of see, is it actually worth the engineering time? Because that's not hard to do, but it takes time for people to do. And your engineers are largely more expensive than the AWS bill. So this is the part of the yak that I want to shave this time, because it's the most expensive yak.
Definitely.
Well, there we go. John's on to shaving animals. So we better move on to our final article.
Heard that before, shaving the yak. Have you not heard that?
Yeah, only from you,
Okay.
actually. So, yeah.
So
I'm
you
sure
still want
you
to
heard
keep
it
this on
somewhere else,
YouTube,
yeah? So let's move along to our final article for this week, and this is somewhat disingenuously entitled "Service Availability Updates."
No, that's perfectly accurate.
Well, I suppose so, but
the
it's more kind of
availability
like
has been updated.
Yeah. To not available.
Not available.
Yeah. So. Yeah, this is well, where is this article? It's on the about AWS page, but we've spoken before because there is now a whole page about AWS services which are either have been or are being deprecated. And this is an article that was published last week about a whole bunch of services which are about to have their availability status changed. So there are 19 services that are moving to maintenance and 4 that are entering sunset. So John, I'm about to have a coughing fit, so I'll allow you to explain the difference and give your opinion on these services which are having their availability updated to not available.
Coughing fit commence. So the 3 levels, right? You've got maintenance, sunset, and what's the last one? End of support. Maintenance is what code commit, I think, still sits in at the minute. It's not open to new users, right? So you can't go, and for any of these listed services, and I'm not going to read them all out because there's too many of them, but for any of these listed services, if you're already using them, you could continue to use them. If you're not, you can't as of the 7th of November. So if you're absolutely desperate to set up an IoT site-wise monitor, do it now, because you won't be able to in a couple of weeks' time. And the reason for moving these things to maintenance is because whilst they have a reasonable customer base now, or they want to give people time to transition off of them, they're not having growth in things, or they've been replaced by something else. One of the sort of more odd ones that you think is Glacier, Amazon Glacier. And that's because that's been replaced by some other flavors of it. So it's only that particular flavor that's being sunset. But the newer flavors, because you've now got instant access and deep archive, I think, are the two kind of. So the original version of Glacier is being gotten rid of eventually, but for people who are already using it, it's not going away. Your files are not going to get deleted or magically just go back to the highest, most expensive tier, right? It's staying as is. In terms of the services that are going bye-bye, you've got some Code Catalyst and Code Review, Code Guru stuff, fine. Fraud Detector, meh. Glacier, meh. S3 Object Lambda, okay. I don't know anyone actually uses any of that. Something about workspaces, app discovery service, various bits of IoT, some mainframe stuff, a few bits of Snowball, because various Snow things have been killed off over the past few years, I think, because data transfer speeds have just gotten better to the point where they're less valuable. Some systems manager stuff, which again, incident manager and change manager have been on my list of things I wanted to play around with and never really found the time or the need. So, okay, I just won't think about them anymore. And some other bits and pieces. Cool. From there, you then move from maintenance to sunset, and sunset is end of life, right? You won't be able to use them anymore. They don't have a date on them yet, but they are looking to be gone within the next 12 months. And that is FinSpace. Never heard of it. Lookout for Equipment. I only know about that because of the SA Pro exam. Cool. IoT Greengrass version 1, and everybody should be off of there sooner rather than later. And Proton, which again, I know about it. I've never seen anyone actually use it. Cool. And then the last one that is dead as of 2 weeks ago is mainframe modernization app testing. Apparently nobody needs to do that anymore.
What are your thoughts on this, Jason? Anything you were surprised about?
Well, the thing that sort of first surprised me was Glacier, and it was like, oh my god, they're getting, what the hell? And then yes, read in, it's like, Okay, so this is why, if you have a look, it's now referred to as S3 Glacier, not Glacier. It's a little bit different. So yeah, freaked me out when I first saw it. I know a bunch of other people were also freaked out. But yes, it's all good. Stay calm. It is not S3 Glacier. It's something slightly different. Funnily enough, looking at my dot points, almost exactly as John said, Change Manager and Incident Manager, I have interesting concepts, but I have never used them. Guess no one else did either. Yeah, like it sounded interesting. If I was running my ITSM through there, maybe, but yeah, no, all my stuff just goes directly to a non-AWS ITSM.
I
So
think the
yeah,
ITSM eco space, there's too many entrenched things that nobody really picked them up, and you don't think, I'll use AWS. I'll use AWS for my ITSM when I'm setting up a new organization. No, you don't, because startups don't do this. They just don't. And existing companies, if they're changing ITSM, will pick a market leader. They'll use a ServiceNow or someone like that.
And even though like Incident Manager tied into ServiceNow, it's like, why are you going via Incident Manager to ServiceNow? Yeah, you know, I'm sure there were some ideas. The ideas were interesting, but yeah, obviously not enough people use them.
The one thing I remember from Incident Manager was from the reInvent recap, from reInvent 24 for the recap at the start of this year that we had, where Carl and I sat in a session where they were talking about, and I forget the name of it now, but it was basically you'd pay AWS $3,000 a month or whatever, and you'd have access to their sort of global SRE type team for helping customers. And they did that through Incident Manager.
AMS.
That's the one.
Amazon Managed Services. Yeah.
But wasn't it the security incident response?
Yes, security incident response. Yeah. But they did that through Incident Manager.
Yeah.
And how that's going to work as of,
yeah, that's
November, I don't know. Because there'll be things built on top of some of these services. So that will have to change.
Well, there is an article behind each of these links explaining what is changing and what else you should do. Apart from Change Manager, which seems to be a broken link right now, so I don't know if that's related to the AWS outage.
Yeah,
but it doesn't work for me when I click on that link today. Yeah, it's gone. So
maybe the change process wasn't good enough. So.
yeah, who knows? But, I haven't tried clicking all of these links, to be fair, but I did just try and click the Change Manager link while we were talking, and that article is no longer available.
No, it's still up. There's a spurious www at the start of it. If you bin that, you can.
Right, it's the it's a bad link on the post. Yeah, there we go. So
there is no alternative for that one. There is no alternative AWS service. They're just getting rid of Change Manager. Whereas lots of them, they say, well, here's the thing that you should be using instead. So if you look at Incident Manager, there's an Ops Center instead, which is what they say you should be using. So I assume that's where it'll move.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we go. So on that note, I think we have reached the end of our time for season 4, episode 40 of Logicast. So thank you, John, as always, for sharing your insights back from your tour of the UK as a national conference speaker.
I'm going to send something to Service Days Cardiff next, and then be international on a technicality.
Yeah,
absolutely. Scotland.
I was going to ask about that. Does going to Wales or Scotland count as international for you?
Absolutely.
I mean, Republic of Ireland definitely would, and there's Cloud Days in Dublin and what have you. So that would definitely count. Have to use my passport to go there.
Well, there we go. And thank you also, Jason, for joining us today from the other side of the world, for our morning, your evening, and for sharing your insights on last week's AWS news and today's AWS outage.
AWS outage, yeah.
I'm sure we'll be talking more about next week. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for listening. If you are still listening, you've made it this far. Please do tell your friends if you've enjoyed it. We are available to download from wherever you download your podcasts. And if you'd like to see the funny faces we are pulling and me coughing silently in the background, you can watch the video feed on the Logicata YouTube channel. We'll be back next week with another episode of Logicast for you. Until then, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.